pick up the phone when I'm all alone? Do you hate me? Kiss me like a heart.
Welcome to the KYP podcast, a show about letting go of things that prevent you from reaching your dreams and being yourself unapologetically. My name is Danny. I'm here with my co-host,
KYP James.
KYP Kev.
and we have another special guest.
Trevor.
All right. So as you can hear from our previous episode about Trevor, the mini episode, we talked a lot about your many career path, how you kept on changing different things. And that brings to the topic about when to move on from things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think how we're going to separate this podcast is number one, how do we break out? Why do people stay in a routine? Number two, are people forced to change? And number three, how do we adapt to change as human beings? And so I want to give the floor to you and talk about if you've been ever stuck in a routine or things that you've done that you want to stay comfortable in that position.
Yeah, I think not only for myself, but I think everyone's been stuck in a sort of routine at one point in their lives, whether it been, their day-to-day work, what they do after work, how they live their lives in general, right? We kind of take our daily routine for granted. That is to say that we have a certain pattern of what we do during our day. Some people get home, turn on a show, start dinner, eat dinner, chill for a bit, and go to bed. And they'll do that every day, and they don't know why. I think it's because we're not aware of what we do in our day-to-day routine, especially if we don't have it planned out. We usually fall into whatever's natural and whatever comes natural to us. And most of the time, that's not ideal, and that's not the optimal way to be performing. I think we should always stick to a routine that we're conscious and aware of, and that's going to benefit us going forward in the future.
You bring a very interesting take to it. I feel a lot of people tend to stick to routine because of comfort. I think comfort is the number one thing that holds people back from doing a lot of things that they want to. A lot of times, people just go home. They don't want to experiment something different. They don't want to face their demons. They don't want to learn something new that's hard, that's like taxing. They just want to go back, watch Netflix. They just want to like play video games because they're comfortable. There's nothing really harassing them to do something different. Like, I'm pretty sure Kevin or Jay, you guys can discuss about it, how you just go home and you mindlessly scroll on your phone because you don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I think you hit it on the head when you say if you're not conscious about creating a routine for yourself, you're going to fall into, the path of least resistance, right? And I definitely feel like that was my case, right? Starting out from school, basically in the family structure I grew up with, the only requirement was get good grades. Nothing else was really kind of put onto me, right? So early on, I fell into the routine of all I have to do is score well on my exams, not even do well in class or pay attention, just score well on my exams, and I can fuck off and do whatever I want. And so what ended up happening is I would do well on my exams and then spend all my time playing video games or fucking around with friends, not doing anything really productive. Obviously, I did sports and stuff there and here and there. But on my free time, I just, wanted to have fun and do something comfortable, right? And I feel like, a lot of people who had a similar routine or had a similar environment, that privileged kind of environment growing up, they carry that into their adult life. And that's why you get that, popular misconception that, it's 9 to 5, and then after 9 to 5, you gotta chill on your couch and turn on the TV, or or focus on sports games and focus on all that. everything follows that structure of, school or work. First it's school, then it turns into work. That's the important part. And then all of the other stuff, you just kind of lay back and relax because it's so tough. The 9 to 5, I'm so tired, whatever. So that's my experience of, what you were talking about. And it became, I became fed up. I didn't like that path I was going on. And, I started making small changes, and I'm still continuing to do that. But now I'm looking back and I can start to see the multiplier effect, right? It started with the podcast. It started with, switching my career. And there's still a lot of that residual, that routine, those chains, those habits. We were talking about it on the other episode. A lot of people might do some of the things I do intentionally. Like Danny has a lot on his plate, but he'll still watch YouTube and doom scroll once in a while. But he intentionally takes time to do that because it helps him unwind. It helps him take his mind off. For me, I catch myself doing these things, and while I'm fucking scrolling, I don't want to be doing this. My mind is like, Kevin, you should be fucking doing this, or you should be fucking doing that. But I'm just, fuck. So I'm at the stage where I've identified the routine, and I'm beginning to take the steps to change it.
So are we talking about like routines that hinder your performance, or are we talking about routines that actually help you become more productive?
I think we're talking more about the routine that hinders you.
Yeah. So like gaming and just watching Netflix, doom scrolling, right?
Doom scrolling, yeah.
Yeah.
Or just basically, I think we're talking more lifestyle right now.
Yeah.
And I think it could also apply towards the career path, right? Where you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're slowly dying a slow death.
Yeah.
Like something
I feel that definitely.
Something that starts out as productive can become a routine that is, no longer adding value, right? Maybe when you start the new job, it's exciting, you're growing, you feel like you're growing, but then 2, 3, 4 years into the road, you feel yourself kind of hitting that level of mastery and then comfortability and then coasting.
I think coasting is a good term.
Coasting,
Yeah. So James, I'm pretty sure you have that sort of career path where you've just been coasting with a lot of things you're very comfortable with.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very much like a go with the flow kind of guy. So I think routine or even like organizing myself is very hard because I was like Kevin. I was like, my parents just let me be, right? They just let me do whatever I wanted. I took 7 years to finish school. I pursued fashion. I started working early. Like I just did whatever I wanted to do. They didn't really have a say in anything because I didn't listen anyway. My brother, on the other hand, they did everything that they expected him to do. But for me, it was like, go all out. So for me, routine is like, man, I get bored easily, man. Like I'm at work, I'm doing my 9 to 5. Like they tell me to get organized, and every morning you have to do these tasks, do the hard things first, right? And I'm just like, sometimes I'm like caught up with, I don't know if it's like ADHD, but like I'm trying to do the tasks like every day, same time, but then I always get caught up on something else. And I don't know if I can thrive in routine, but I think it's about training your brain. Right, just like with your military thing, it's like you don't start making your bed, working out, you don't start automatically doing that. You have to learn it. You have to train your brain, right? And it comes down to very much like, how do you fit the mold within that system, and how do you straighten yourself, right? I don't know if do you see routine as something that is beneficial or more on a negative side?
I think routine is very beneficial, but it's very dependent from person to person.
Yeah.
I think some people will thrive with a very productive routine. And for others, a routine that's monotonous and is the same every day will be very destructive for someone's morale and their motivation to continue. Because if you're a person that thrives on spontaneity and doing things that, you know, come naturally, being stuck in a routine where you say, okay, let's say you're an artist and you say, okay, for these 30 minutes, I have to think of what I'm going to do. It's never going to come.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a producer, for example, and you're sitting down in the studio and saying, okay, for these 15 minutes, I'm going to get a drum line for this beat. It might come, it might not come. Having that rigid routine can be destructive. But I think a basic lifestyle routine is beneficial to everyone, even for people like me who doesn't really thrive on routine. I find it hard to stick to. I think having something basic that's set out that I can stick to will be very beneficial in helping find a path for me to go down that's productive, rather than, you know, sitting and doing whatever comes to mind, which can lead down to some very, you know, unfortunate paths or some very unproductive weeks of just sitting around doing nothing because I'm not sure of what to start or what to do. I think doom scrolling is one of the biggest detriments to us and our generation in this in the time we live in right now, because I'll catch myself, it'll be 2 hours into doom scrolling, I'll be like, what the fuck, where'd the time go?
Yeah.
What happened?
You gotta go to sleep.
I gotta go to sleep, or I'm thinking, what the fuck else could I have done in those 2 hours? Because when you think about it, if you spend 2 hours a day doing something for a year, you'll probably be better than 99% of the people in the world at whatever that one discipline is, right?
Yeah.
We're all very good at doom scrolling, but what have we worked on?
We worked on speed scrolling, right?
You got good thumb muscles.
Yeah.
Those fast switch muscles in my
I have
thumb.
a vault of memes that is unmatchable. All right, fuck with me.
You know, and it's kind of like a vicious cycle too, where because you're, let's say for me, like I hop into bed at midnight and then I'm not tired yet, so I start doom scrolling. Or I feel like my eyes are tired, but I still want to just look at some few stuff on YouTube Shorts just because it's like quick content. And then as I scroll, my pupils starts to dilate. And then I don't get tired anymore. And I just get a second wind.
I've got that feeling before.
And so,
But it's literally like it's like the dopamine.
yeah, you
Yo,
just
crazy.
fucked with your sleep cycle,
Yeah.
and now you're scrolling. It's 3 a.m. Like I'm fully awake now. I can't go to sleep. What do I do? Jerk off and go to sleep now? So I'm like exhausted.
Yeah.
So you keep doom scrolling, and next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. Like, oh, fuck, I have to wake up in like 3 hours.
Right.
It ruins your whole day after
Yeah,
that.
it ruins
Yeah.
everything.
So routine with organization, like organizing yourself, disciplining yourself, is that
Yeah,
is that the key?
I think the key is self-discipline, and it's one of those skills that's learned, right? After I decided to get in real estate, I decided to flip my whole routine upside down, because being a music student, studying from home, as you can imagine, my
easy,
routine was not the best.
Yeah. You wake up like right before class, have
Exactly.
a coffee,
Wake
take
up
a time.
Wake up right before class, chill a bit, maybe smoke a joint,
Every day
get on
is
the
420.
class.
Every day's 420.
That was good life, eh?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I did nothing productive except play guitar for 6 hours a day.
That's productive in my mind.
You got good, eh?
I got okay, but it wasn't focused, deliberate practice. It was more like kind of mindless playing around, noodling.
noodling.
Exactly, noodling.
Yeah.
So I think self-discipline is very important and it's key. What I did is, when I flipped my routine upside down for being, you know, a bum college student, and I told myself, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6:30 a.m. every day. I'm going to go for a run. Yeah, it didn't happen.
Yeah. It's
Right?
tough. Yeah.
It's got to start small. So I was like, okay, what time am I waking up right now? Okay, 9:30. My first class is at 10. Let's dial it back to 9. Let me do 5 push-ups when I wake up. Everyone can do 5 push-ups, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the little things that get me into the habit of doing something when I wake up. Then I can build on it. If I throw myself into doing something new, even if it's playing an instrument or a sport or a hobby, reading, I really didn't like reading until I decided to sit down for 5 minutes, open a book. I remember I was starting this book called Flowers for Algernon. Very good book. But I decided to sit down for 5 minutes and read 2 or 3 pages. The next thing I knew, I just kept going after a couple days. And I think, you know, once you get over that initial hump of not wanting to do something to settling into doing it, the momentum starts to take over and you start to enjoy whatever activity it is. Could be working out, could be, doing something productive, anything other than doom scrolling, right? Got to work your way into something that gives you delayed gratification, something that pays off later, right?
Yeah. And I think it's really hard for a lot of people to kind of get the grasp of that delayed gratification. Some people just need a kick in the ass just to wake up. I think similar to how James and Kevin really, they saw the podcast slowly growing over time, getting a lot more views, people messaging us about how the podcast really helps them in their life. They realize like, oh, I need to do something different.
A trigger.
It lights a fire under their ass. And now I want to ask you, right, do you feel like humans in general really need an event or something that helps them change their life, whether it is career, lifestyle, whatever?
I think so. I remember before we were talking about the comfort zone, and we all get stuck into it naturally. And that really applies anything in lifestyle, career. I'll go with career-wise. A lot of people need to be forced to make a change.
Right.
Right? A lot of people are putting up with career they don't enjoy or a job that they don't like. Maybe it's just not the right fit for them in terms of what their skills and abilities are, the type of personality they have, or maybe it's the wrong industry, whatever it might be. However, when money's good, we get up, we do the same thing every week. We know checks coming in a couple weeks. We can go home and do whatever we want after that 5 o'clock hits. The motivation to make a change really isn't there until something big happens.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's like a comfort zone. There's like what I can tolerate, and then what will make me leave.
Yeah.
A lot of people will stay up and down with what they can tolerate until something either forces them to leave or they don't have a choice.
Right. I mean, if you take that concept, right, at the end of the day, it's just a Maslow pyramid of needs, right? You have the things that you really need up top, like housing, money, whatever to live, and then the things that you don't really need at the bottom of the pyramid. So I think a lot of people, when they change their lifestyle, it's because something up top is getting compromised. I think the biggest thing we can all relate to is losing your job or getting fired. That's like a fire underneath your ass that you really need to wake up and do something.
Yeah.
But let's say if tomorrow your guitar string breaks, you're probably just going to be, I'll just order from Amazon. Then you forget, and then you go 3 weeks about it. But these changes that affects a core being on how you live as a person really makes it so that you change as a person. You need to change your routine. And I want to send it over to Kevin. Really, is there something really in your life that made you change your routine? Or let's say, I know KYP is a trigger to help you change how you look at life.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like a lot of my journey so basically at 26 years old, or 2 years ago, I was trying to break a routine that was set for many, many, many years, most of my adult life. And KYP was at the beginning of that journey. And it's always been, over that 2 years, it wasn't a straight line, right? It was, make some progress, stagnate a bit, maybe drop down a little bit, and then make some progress again. And that's happened, maybe half a dozen times over the last 2 years. And it always comes back to, how much I love what we're building here. And a lot of the times when I find myself kind of not optimizing the time I have outside of my 9 to 5 building my career, I think back to how hard you guys work. We all work on this pod to, really work towards something we believe in. And that's why I get that trigger. When I catch myself doom scrolling, I'm like, this motherfucker is taking time away from my dream, from my brother's dreams, the people I care about. And that's been a very recent trigger. I think before, because I was kind of new, I needed to, like I was saying, right? Sometimes when you start something, it's very productive.
Yeah.
Like my sales job, I thought it was very productive because I had a lot to learn, and I was loving that, it was fast growth, right?
Fast
So it's
pace,
always
yeah.
exciting. Now I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty comfortable. I have a strong grasp. And then I found that, those chains coming back in, the bad habits
Yeah.
coming back in. And then recently I've seen how much we've progressed as a team. And, the thought just came to me that it would be such a shame if I don't, take hold of the opportunity and do more. So I think that's been triggering me to make adjustments. Like Trevor said, at first I tried to make big adjustments, right? Try to get myself to the. I haven't had a gym habit consistently for 1 year in my life. And I would be like, oh, Kevin, you're going to go downstairs. You could do an hour of gym, chest, arm, whatever. No, that shit doesn't work. So slowly, one at a time, right? And I feel like it's so great to be able to get that insight from, someone who's so young, but you really have it together. Like you see the picture.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Kevin. But I think the picture of needing to do something productive is something that comes with experience of being very unproductive. I think lighting a fire under your own ass is something that only you can do. A lot of people you can be a bum and have your mom, your dad, brother, sister, best friends, your dog yell at you, telling you to get off your ass and do something. But unless you do it yourself, nothing's going to happen, right?
Right.
I've been through phases where I was just sitting on my ass doing nothing productive at all. And then it was not the people around me that motivated me to change, but myself.
Right.
The feeling that this isn't where I'm supposed to be. This is not what I envisioned for myself 5 years ago, 2 years ago, or even 6 months ago. I'm letting myself down, first of all, and I'm letting my future self down if I continue to do what I'm doing now. So that's kind of what motivates me to change. And I think that, people in general, they need to be forced to change, not because of what's going on around them, but for themselves.
Like over time, that tolerance threshold might change. Like you can't tolerate it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And
Maybe there's no external triggers, but you're just you kind of the sayings, you hit rock bottom. You're sick of the routine.
yeah, and that can be said because let's say you start a job 5 years later, you have to move because you're not the same person as you were 5 years ago. You change, you evolve, you grow, and then you're still physically in the same place you were 5 years ago. So it's time for a fresh start. You're not that person anymore. So you need to find the next thing that will help you continue to grow instead of constraining you to, the person that you once were and people who know you for what you were 5 years ago, for example.
I do like the fact that you mentioned that you're doing it for yourself, because James would remember our conversation with a previous guest, Kirk. We discussed about lighting a fire under our asses. And I feel for me personally that I can change stuff for myself because I want to, but it is so much more impactful when a loved one comes and like, dude, you got to get your shit together. Like when my girlfriend comes around and she sees me like lying in bed doing that, when I get emails about clients like, hey, where are the photos, where's the video, stuff like that. I think the external opinion really affects me more as a person.
Yeah, I agree.
Rather than like changing it for myself. And I don't know how you stand on that. Do you feel that really do you feel that the external opinion helps you change yourself, or at the end of the day, it's really you're doing this for yourself and yourself only?
Yeah, I think you and I differ there. In terms of having loved ones and friends around me to help motivate me, of course it helps. But at the end of the day, I do most of the things that I do because I tell myself to do it. I've come in this world alone. I'm going to leave alone. No matter what happens in life, people come and go, right? Throughout the years, I'll make friends, I'll lose friends, but I'm going to be with myself the whole time. And I have to be okay with that. And I have to be okay with the person I'm going to become. So that's what really motivates me to make a change and be the best that I can be. Because if it comes down to, however long in the future, I just don't want to regret the things that I've done in the past, the things that I can control right now. And that's why I really focus on, finding what's best for myself and what I want to do and going towards that route.
And now that we're on the topic of really having people being forced into change, right? Have you had a lot of life events? Because I know you switch careers a lot. A lot of these career changes, does it mostly have to do with someone lighting a fire under your ass, or you really wanting to just switch career because you wanted to be the better person for yourself in the future?
I think a lot of the changes that I made, not only career-wise, but in my own personal development, was a combination of the circumstance I was in, external, and also, my inner monologue and voice telling me what to do and how I was growing and how I was maturing. For example, to start off, when I, left being in the military full time, it was a decision that wasn't really dependent on external factors. It was completely by myself. But it was also the fact that COVID-19 pandemic was coming to an end. Not really the pandemic, but the initial big scare lockdown phase, right?
Yeah.
My contract was coming up to an end. So that combined with the motivation to do something that I felt like I belonged in was really what pushed me to make that change.
And in terms of, all these making things working, making yourself as a better person, have you learned that by yourself? Have you had resources? Do you read a lot, watch YouTube videos to understand these changes and how to progress from them?
I think I play a lot of things by ear. Of course, I read a lot of the self-development books. I read a lot of them when I was first getting into, entrepreneurship, sales, as most people do, right? That's kind of what gives us the juice to keep going.
Exactly.
Reading, 4-hour work week and books like that.
What was your first book that really impacted you?
First book, I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I was gonna say
that was my first book.
I was gonna say that. I was like, that's the classic one.
Yeah. I remember I read the whole thing cover to cover, and I still didn't really take any of the advice.
Did you buy real estate?
No, I was looking for a new guitar. I'm like, is this an asset? I still bought it anyway.
Yeah, it's a fun book. Actually, my first book that I've read about self-development, quote unquote, was The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I've probably read it like 3-4 times. Still don't fucking understand what's going on.
Jesus,
But,
I know, man.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
It's probably like 40 pages long. But then you start getting into that vicious cycle of trying to be the better person. So you start either signing up for courses, you learn more books, you read more development, and then eventually you just give up and you just lay back in bed because it's so much easier to scroll on your phone.
Yeah, that in itself is a rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think definitely now that we've discussed about lighting a fire under people's asses and things, you're the perfect example to ask, because we all change because of external opinions, but at the end of the day, you do everything for yourself. I want to discuss more about adapting to changes, because adapting to change is one of the hardest thing a human can go through, and is a thing that every human needs to go through. What are different steps that you take really to start to understand what's going on and how to move on?
All right, I think whenever a big change comes in my life, I tend to look at things a little nonchalantly. I try and look at, the situation and scenario that I'm put in at kind of a third person point of view. Like I'm either reading it in a book or watching it on TV. Because I think if I look at it as myself in a situation, I put a lot of emotion into it. I think very emotionally and very rashly, because I'm thinking, oh, how can this affect me? How could this happen to me? A lot of people say that, right? But that's just a means to an end. You're gonna go down, oh, poor me, why is this happening to me? And it's not gonna help. So I like to zoom out, look at things from a third point of view. Is it
Third person?
Yeah, third person.
from the third person, yeah. And then think of what I can control. And whatever I can't control, I just try to ignore. I know it's easier said than done, but there's been a lot of times like when I've lost a job, I could either cry about it, be like, "Oh man, they set me up to fail," or I would deserve so much more than that place, or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, I can't control the fact that I no longer have that position. What I can control is what I do after.
Yeah.
So I try and do that, and just in general, not take life that seriously. I know it sounds a bit bad, but in the sense that I live life in a playful kind of way where I like to explore and discover things on my own terms. And, you know, having a job, losing a job, it's not really serious in the grand scheme of things. Of course, I need money. But I'll find another job, right? Losing a job isn't the end of the world. Maybe if I lost my legs, I'd be a bit more concerned, or if I had a family member that was ill, or I
that's tough.
lost my house.
Yeah.
Those are things that are, major implications, but
Circumstance.
yeah, those are things that would majorly affect my life. But losing a job, losing a relationship, losing a friendship, those are all things that are a big deal in the moment. But in retrospect, after we've moved on and adapted, can look back and kind of giggle at the fact that we were so worked up about something so small.
I had a question for you, Trevor. As someone who's kind of gone through this process of routine, change, adapting to change, what do you find is the most difficult part in that process? Is it dealing with the routine when you're stuck in it? Is it, going through that you need to change moment? Or is it the final step, adapting to the new scenario?
I think the hardest part is really adapting to the new situation, right? Because whenever we're stuck in routine, whatever it might be, professional or personal, we kind of attach a bit of our identity to that routine. For example, if I was a plumber and I lost my job as a plumber, I couldn't be a plumber anymore. I'd be like, man, I was a plumber, now I'm not a plumber.
Now I have to find a job as a plumber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So getting out of that fact that my identity was tied to whatever was in the past is probably the most difficult part for me.
So true.
And we talked a bit off camera, and I think Kevin mentioned the fact that, hey, how do you introduce yourself? And you just said, I'm Trevor.
Yeah.
I don't want to associate myself to a career path because there's a lot of bad connotation based, or there's a lot of preconceived like perceptions
Stereotypes,
about a
yeah.
certain stereotype about a certain career path because you want to be your own person. I find that very it's awesome.
Like
Yeah, it's
you don't
inspiring.
label
Yeah,
yourself
it's
to
inspiring.
one thing, right? Yeah.
No, I don't like labeling myself, because if I do, I've done a lot of different things. I'm
It's tough.
confused myself as to what I should identify as, and if I do, I put that preconceived notion onto myself that, for example, if I introduce myself as a real estate agent, I'm like, okay, I have to act like a real estate agent now to this person.
Or even
It's
if you
true.
don't think it, the other people are going to expect you to be at, or projecting a real estate agent
That's right.
onto you. Yeah.
So I just prefer to be myself. Whatever I do to make money is what it is, what I do to make money. I don't want it to be close to the person that I am at my core, because what I do is going to change. Just like, whatever I wear is going to change. I might have a sense of fashion last month that's going to change this month. That might change in a couple months later. I don't want to be known as, for example, if I wore a beanie every day, I don't want to be known as a guy that always wears a beanie, because I get pigeonholed into a certain category by, myself and by other people. First, having to live up to an expectation that other people have about me, and also people putting that expectation onto me. But if I just introduce myself as Trevor, the door's wide open for people to think what they want. They can just, they can interpret who I am based off the interactions that they have with me, which I think is a lot more valuable and a lot more authentic.
I do like how your interpretation of it, because
Yeah.
I differ from your opinion a lot, because I grew up as the guy who always wore suits. And that's what distinguished me from the crowd of people who just don't wear suits. And it's nice to see someone who can actually be comfortable in his own skin to say, I'm just Trevor. I'm whoever you want me to be, and I'm there for you. And meanwhile, on my side, a lot of times I had to force that identity on myself to be different. And now sometimes
It's a lot of pressure.
there's sometimes it's a lot of pressure. I remember going to Niagara Falls with some friends, and I showed up at the train station. I was wearing comfortable clothes, hoodie, sweatpants, and a cap, and they didn't even recognize me.
It was weird.
They didn't even recognize me from a mile away. I had to walk up to them and said, "Hey guys!" I'm like, "Oh shit, Danny, sorry." We were
Like the regular Joe.
we were actually wondering what you're gonna wear on the train.
Wow.
And it was
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, for them, they just assume I'd show up in a 3-piece suit in the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to go back a bit back to what you were mentioning about blaming other circumstances and moving on to those and moving on, where I think a lot of people these days, they lack a lot of accountability in what they do, and they use that victimization in their daily lives. I got fired because this person didn't like me.
Yeah.
I
You make excuses.
don't make money because XYZ happens. Did you ever have that situation where you victimize yourself, or you were always that person that never took accountability of all your actions and all the situation that occurred to you?
Of course, I had that victim mentality before. I think growing up in Western society, where a lot of the focus is on our ego, right, making us feel good, right? We shouldn't be uncomfortable.
Participation trophy. Yeah.
Don't even start with that.
Yeah, all that kind of sets us up to portray that victim mentality, and that's that in itself is very destructive to my potential.
Right.
Because if I say, oh, I can't make money because first of all, I've identified myself as someone that can't make money, and I'm putting an external reason on that, which is something I cannot change. Therefore, I am this way because of this thing I cannot control, which is simply not true. If I were to say, oh, I got fired because this person doesn't like me, well, I'm like, no, let's take a step back. Let's analyze what happened. Oh, I got fired because I was a poor performer, or I wasn't the right fit for this position. Or, for example, taking a relationship. Oh, I got dumped because this person,
She's crazy.
She's crazy, right? Again, that's a victim mentality that gets us nowhere, because we're not analyzing
Not learning
ourselves.
from it,
We're
yeah.
not learning from the experience.
Yeah.
And going forward, if we keep doing that to ourselves, well, we'll start to project those insecurities onto our identity. For example, if you get dumped multiple times, you're always blaming other people and you never look inward. You're just saying, oh, I'm undateable.
You're undateable, or other people don't have good taste for like good people,
Yeah.
good men.
Oh, yeah. They'll be like, oh, people in Toronto say, oh, Toronto men are trash. Right? There's a lot of victim mentality out there. And that's not to say that, there aren't bad men out there. It's just the fact that we all need to look inwards on and analyze the situation on, what we can control and what we cannot.
And I think a lot of what we touched on in this conversation is about comfort zone and discomfort. And a lot of the time, all the growth, all the, new things you encounter in your life comes through after a period of discomfort. And that victim mentality, what it does is it soothes you. It comforts you. So that, you don't have to blame yourself. You don't have to feel discomfortable. You don't have to kind of face your flaws, right? But actually, if I'm sure all of you guys can relate, when you were trying to get better at a skill, at a craft, at a sport, you go through a period where you fucking suck at it, and that's not comfortable. But if you stick with it and you keep going at it, that's when you obtain mastery.
So it goes back to routine.
Goes back
Yeah.
to routine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I do remember when I used to play football in high school, right? I was, 110 pounds wet, 5'6". I was playing a linebacker. And I was getting mowed down every time in like I can't remember what drill it was, but it was a running back versus a linebacker. I got mowed down every
jeez.
drill. But then, I took physics class and then I calculated in my head. I'm like, wait a second. Mass counts for half of the speed of the energy versus the speed. So if I go quicker, I can hit someone harder.
Yeah.
Technically. So I did the math in my head. So every time I got mowed down, I just thought to myself, hey, if I backed up 2 more steps to get that extra speed so I can hit a guy harder, he might fall down eventually. And eventually that's what happened. I just took that disadvantage. I took 2 steps back and I ran into that guy a lot harder, and that caused me a concussion because eventually I had to hit the head. But at least that guy went down with me. So I think back to the point you were saying where there's a lot of things you can't control, right? There are adversaries. There are a lot of competition in the world. If you're in sales and the other guy is a better salesperson than you could be sitting there moping and saying, oh, I'm not a good salesperson. Oh, this guy's like sucking dick of the boss or like the client. Or you can pick yourself back up, maybe ask advice from him and saying, hey, I'd love to learn more sales technique. I'd love to learn. You're great at what you do. I'd love to learn more about it, and pick yourself back up and be a better person. And I think that victim mentality a lot of times tend to drag us down and limit our potential as people, right? If we take Kevin as an example, if he kept looking at the creative arts as basically like a lower tier of a career path, he would never be here communicating with people, interacting with interesting guests. And so I think, Kevin, do you have anything to talk about, like limiting yourself?
I feel like I experienced that for a long, long time. And I didn't see myself as the victim. I always have, a pretty high image of myself. I don't know. I think I was instilled with a certain level of confidence due to the way I was raised and all of that. And then at the beginning, it was merited. Maybe in my early college days, I was doing things that merit me feeling good about myself or confident about myself. But then the victim mentality, when I was starting to slip in my performance, when I wasn't achieving the results that I was getting, the victim mentality came in, and instead of saying, Kevin, alert, you're slipping in this area, you're slipping in that area, we need to fix it. No, that's not what the voice I heard. My voice, and I think it was influenced by the victim mentality in one way or another, my voice was like, no, we're still good. The reason why it's going down is because of, I wasn't trying, or,
Samba basketball.
Something stupid, right? Or, it's like, oh, they don't understand, or, they don't see the vision I see, or whatever. And that carried on for a while because that felt comfortable. Like, you're faced with a choice when, your outcome is changing.
Yeah.
And if you succumb to that choice,
fight or flight,
what is the result? It's like when you victimize it away, it's like, oh, I can't do anything about it. So
it's not my fault.
Let me just keep going. And then after a prolonged period of that, it starts to deteriorate to the point where, when you talk about your tolerance level, it starts to hit the threshold. Yeah. And then it's like, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. It's time to, that's when it really hit me. I had to kind of hit rock bottom a little bit to realize what was going on. Yeah. And that's why it ties back to kill your pride.
Yeah.
At that moment, when I was when I was declining, I had a different impression and different interpretation of kill your pride. I finally got it. It's like, stop lying to yourself, Kevin. The fact is,
it's crazy to me that you're saying that.
You've digressed so much because of your pride. Just kill your pride and fucking admit that you're not as good as you thought you were. And then that began the process of, oh, now I'm getting better. Let's fucking go. And then when I started to see that, I'm like, all right, let's go. I think when you met me, every time I faced a challenge or something that, you know, I wasn't as good at, my attitude was so positive, right? Like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to be, yeah, I suck right now, but I'm going to be better in the next month or in the next year or whatever. If you met me in my later college years, it wasn't like that. Yeah.
It's crazy you saying that because Trevor, just so you, I don't know if you know, but Kaleo Pride or KYP was a clothing brand. And man, it's just crazy that you're, just by the logo, you're like, yo, gotta kill my pride, man.
It spoke to me.
Yeah, because he reached out to me like 2 years ago about my clothing brand, and he was like, how's it going? And then that's how we got the idea for the podcast. But man, I totally agree with you, and I think I'm going through that right now. Just a small tangent before we wrap up. How are we doing on time? Sorry.
Yeah, we could go a bit longer.
I'll do. I promise to do 2 minutes, because I could go for 10 minutes. But man, like, so my passion is fashion and social media as well. Like I've been doing it for over 10 years, and I never really took it seriously until like a month ago. I think now I'm in like, because of KYP, like we were taking it seriously for KYP. Like we were consistent. We're posting every week. We have a half strategy, not a full strategy yet, but we're getting there for social media. But we are consistent, and people are seeing the episodes. People are seeing our faces weekly, and they're waiting for the episodes to be posted. And that consistency was never a thing for me. That routine. Like I was never consistent in my social media posting. I never had a strategy. I just posted when I felt like it. Go with the flow. And man, like because of this podcast, like I realized there's a brand here, and we have to be building it as a collective. And like I don't know if you've seen the social media page now, but it's getting there.
There's a theme now.
Yeah, like yeah. I got that routine. Like I got that routine finally because I was so inconsistent. I was just posting whatever I wanted. But yeah, I think I'm going through it now, and it's kind of refreshing to go through it and to learn from it, you know?
Are you gonna be mad at me if I want to add a 1 minute thing?
Yeah, just go ahead.
So something occurred to me on this conversation. You know how kind of this process we've been talking about, Trevor does it self-sufficiently.
Yeah.
It comes internal. What I realize is, at least for me and James, I think maybe Danny as well, this podcast is us going through this process collectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have helped and relied on each other to kind of do a lot of this improvement, adapting to new changes as a group. Every time I come back to Montreal, when I come back to Toronto, I'm fucking renewed. You see that, right?
I seen it. Yeah.
So, that's just something that occurred to me. Sorry, Danny.
I know.
Wrap it up.
No worries. Well, thank you again, Trevor, for giving Kevin, James, and I a moment of enlightenment, a light bulb moment of, oh shit, we're actually doing
This
this.
guy's younger than us, by the way.
Very inspirational, yeah.
Very inspirational. As always, where can we find you?
You can find me on Trevor.Wong on Instagram. I'm not really active anywhere else. If you want to say hi, I guess you can.
Perfect.
LinkedIn.
Oh yeah,
This guy's
LinkedIn too.
Number one closer.
If anyone is looking for a great closer based out of Toronto, contact Trevor right now.
Let's go.
Phones are ringing right now.
Phones are ringing. And so, like always, my name's Danny. I'm here with my co-host
KYP James.
KYP Kev.
and our special guest.
Trevor.
And remember,
The KYP.
Kill your pride, baby.
We can get lost in a dream where you keep secrets from. So tell me what you see when you look at me, 'cause I wanna believe your stories.